Hey there, Professor, look what I brought. Now tell me what's my rock.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of What's My Rock, the show where real people bring me their real rocks that they found and I try to identify them. I'm your geology professor, Dr. Abstract, and I'm here with my new friend, Ronnie. Welcome.
Thank you.
What town do you live in, Ronnie?
San Bernardino.
San Bernardino. Okay, great. And may I ask what you do for a living?
I'm a union painter, industrial painter.
Union painter. Okay, all right. I'm also a union member now. I just joined the faculty union, and we're going to go on strike. Do you have any advice for going on strike?
I've never been on strike, so I don't want to go on strike. Yeah, stay away from the strikers.
Sounds good. So
Yeah.
all right. So you brought me a rock here that's in this box. Okay. Well, this is very, very, very heavy rock for its size. That means it's very dense. Let's see. And it's pretty brown, kind of a brown darkness to it. It's got some cracks that are going through here. The cracks look like they tend to be brown. It's pretty smooth. I don't see any bubbles in there, bubbles that we call vesicles. I don't see any of those in there. Why don't you tell me about what do you know about this rock so far?
My grandmother found this in New Mexico back in the late 50s,
Okay.
1950s, and out in the desert. And it's been in the family ever since. And I always liked it because when I was a kid, she always told me about it's a monkey face.
Monkey face? Where's the monkey face?
If you turn it this way,
Oh, right.
you can see the.
It looks like a Raiders
face.
Looks like a Raiders of the Lost Ark
Yeah.
thing.
So I inherited it when she passed, and she did have it checked out and identified, but no paperwork to be found.
In New Mexico, she had it identified?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if it was New Mexico or she had it looked at.
Okay. They have a very good meteorite department at the
That was back in
University of New Mexico.
That's before I was born.
Right. Did she give you any information about how she found it?
I guess she was just walking and
Mm-hmm.
came upon it. Yeah, that's all I know.
Where-
I wish she was here right now. She'd tell me more, but
I wish you were here right now
Yeah.
too. So she found it where she lived. So what city would that be?
Albuquerque maybe.
Albuquerque, okay.
In that area.
Okay.
They were in the service, so whatever base was closest to.
Okay. So let's check with the magnet. This feels pretty heavy. It's got some brown on it, which we would expect for iron. And so I would predict that this would have some metal. I would predict that it would be magnetic. It might not be.
I know in certain spots it sticks stronger
So-
than other spots.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this on here. We'll see if it sticks. Okay. And look at that. In fact, here's my magnet. I'll put it in my hand. I can put it like that. And clearly it's
Yeah.
magnetic.
I was testing it with a magnet on a string.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
a-
I mean, we don't even need a string for this one. It's
Yeah.
sort of hanging
And I
on
know
for dear
some
life.
spots it sticks even better.
On surfaces that don't have as much oxidation, it might be a little more magnetic or something.
Right.
So that's fine. But the first step is that it is magnetic, and if it were a meteorite, it of course would be an iron meteorite, and iron meteorites must be magnetic. So
And I did take pictures of it in rock identifier on your phone,
Mhm.
and it came up as a meteorite.
I mean, like Google Lens or
It was just on the app on my phone.
was it an app on the phone? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one thing that the phone apps can't do is analyze the chemical composition of a material. I have the X-ray fluorescence machine that you've seen on the show before.
Right.
The straightforward test is that if there's iron and at least a few % of nickel, then that's a very important criterion for determining a meteorite. And if it doesn't have nickel on it, then we'll explore other things, but it probably is not going to be a meteorite. Okay, and something else that I think might make someone think this is a meteorite, by the way, is the fact that it has this smooth surface. When a rock hurtles through the atmosphere, it burns up, and it develops what we call a fusion crust on the outside. Fusion is just a fancy science word that means melting. And the fact that this is pretty smooth out here, I think that someone might suspect that this has been melted. It may not be melted. There's other possibilities. There's something called desert varnish, where something sits out in the desert and wind and sand and all that stuff.
Patina.
Yeah, patina. Very good. So it could be something like that. It could be any number of things. But I did want to say that I just want to acknowledge that that the fact that this is pretty smooth would make someone suspect a meteorite. So I think that
I did put it underneath a black light, and I was able to see like this, like looked like clear drips
okay.
going like dripping down like egg whites. I don't know if that has any,
I don't know. We do have some fluorescent lights, but I think the next step to do is just to analyze the chemical composition.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do that with our XRF machine here.
Right.
And I'm going to put this here, and I'm going to bring the XRF. So our XRF machine here. We're going to put it right there. BAL stands for balance, and that means everything that the XRF can't identify, other chemicals that are in the rock, other elements. What is coming up is iron. You can see the percent symbol right there.
Okay, yeah.
So that means this is 38% iron, and it's about 61% balance. We're getting a little potassium, a little calcium. No, we're not seeing any nickel yet. Okay, so that's...
They didn't have this machine back in the 50s. So.
They may have had a X-ray fluorescence machine back then. They could make atomic bombs and blow up cities back then. I would think they could have an XRF machine. So
yeah, they could make anything.
They almost, they were almost on the moon. So I'll have to go check to see when X-ray fluorescence was invented. But I have a feeling it's been around for longer than we might think. I mean, technically, the principle of X-ray fluorescence has been around since the beginning of the universe. Right?
Oh yeah.
It's only humans are able to figure it out recently. So, okay, we're getting a lot of silicon right in there. Silicon.
Is that a good sign or a bad sign? Or?
Well, it's if the goal is to confirm the identity of a meteorite, that wouldn't be a good sign because iron and silicon together are not going to make a large iron meteorite.
Right.
And the final results, we have 39%, a little under 40% iron, 26% silicon, a little bit of aluminum, magnesium. And if I scroll down here, unfortunately, I'm not even seeing nickel. Nickel is even showing up. Darn. It might show up at the very bottom, but no, it's not showing up at all. So now that's just that one side. So maybe it's an iron meteorite, but it was oxidized or something, and maybe we can't see the nickel. So we can try one more spot.
Okay.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's just try it right there. All right. One more analysis.
Well, she didn't tell me it was a meteorite, but let's see what happens. This whole time,
Right.
Been believing.
Yep, this one we're getting mostly 47% iron so far. The balance is 53%.
I could cut it in half and see what it looks like inside.
Well, that's a good idea. So I was thinking, I mean, maybe there's nickel in it, but the nickel on the outside has been reacted away somehow through a process called weathering. And if we cut into it, we might be able to see what's inside. We got time today. We could go do that. You want to cut into it?
Would that take the value away from it if it's
if it is a meteorite? Well, here's the thing. That's a really good question. I think that it probably would be less valuable. However, we haven't found
two pieces of together. I know that a lot of people, they make knife blades out of them. And
that's
stuff.
right.
And you collect them and cut them up anyway.
I bought a slice of an iron meteorite on eBay for $40 a couple months ago. Wow. So people do sell them as slices.
Yes.
But the point I wanted to make is that yes, it would probably decrease the value. On the other hand, if this is an iron meteorite and the nickel was somehow reacted away on the outside, there's going to be no other way to prove that it's an iron meteorite unless we cut into it.
Okay.
So I'm
down for it.
Let's call it a last resort.
Yes.
Dylan, should we go out to the rock shed and do some cutting? What do you think?
I'd be down for that.
Yeah. All right. It won't take long.
Yeah.
But let's look at this analysis here. Iron and silicon are the two most abundant. There's no trace of nickel whatsoever.
All right.
So it's not looking good here because I think that even if a lot of the nickel disappeared, there would still be like a little sniff of it. Okay. There isn't even a sniff of it. So let's go ahead and cut into it, and then we'll come back in. We'll reanalyze it and see if we revealed any nickel. Okay, here we are out at our rock shed here. We're gonna cut open this rock. We were just talking, Ronnie, about where should we cut it. Now, it's your rock, so where would you like it to be cut? And this is from your grandma. So
I would think she would want it cut probably. I'd say let's go right down the middle.
Right down the middle? I'm going to try to. I think. Well, first of all, this is
way or this way?
this is going to be hard to cut because it's pretty heavy.
Yeah,
It feels
it'll
like
take a
it's
while.
made mostly of metal, like an iron silicide or something. So I'm actually thinking if we kind of cut it right here
Just a little slice.
on this a little slice.
Okay.
I think that if there is a weathering rind, it's just going to be a thin layer on the outside. And if this inside is metal, it should be pretty good, and we'll find out pretty quick.
Okay.
And that way, it's going to be shorter to cut. It also will preserve more of the rock that your grandma gave you.
Great.
Right?
That
Sound good?
yeah,
All right.
that
All right.
sounds
Let's do
good.
that. Okay. So it's going to take a while. So at least I think it will. If it doesn't
Okay.
take a while, that will be interesting. But cutting metal is pretty tricky. But I'm going to turn this on. This is a water tile saw. You said you've used these before,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Okay. So it's going to cool it with water. So it's going to get a little wet.
Mhm.
But you don't look like you have your Sunday finest on. I don't really
Yeah.
have my Sunday finest on. So we're good. So I'm going to put it up here. We're going to cut it. I'm going to put my ear protection on because I've listened to too much music and loud
Yes.
music in my life. And
Yes,
gotta
I
take my-
sound blessed all the time.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Got it.
All right. That wasn't too bad. It cut.
Yeah.
It was pretty slow, but it wasn't that slow. And what do you think about that?
It's smooth.
It's pretty smooth. Looks metallic to me, like I expected, anyways.
Kind of looks like a lead, huh? Almost like color, like a lead pencil type.
Yeah, but luckily there's not lead in here because we analyzed it with XRF. Otherwise,
Right.
I'm getting lead all over my hands. But I'm not. It's mostly iron and silicon. And see all that red stuff in there?
Okay.
That's the oxidized iron that's penetrated throughout this thing. So let's go check this out.
X-ray that one.
We'll X-ray that. Now we have a relatively clean surface. All right, we're back from the rock shed with this freshly cut specimen. We're going to analyze it on this end right here. Before we do that, I do want to just take a look because it has silicon in it, which is a little unusual. That doesn't make it an iron meteorite, but industrially, it looks like to me this is a iron metal mixed with silicon metal, iron silicide kind of thing. So maybe someone on YouTube will tell us what this is. They usually do.
Okay,
So,
great.
Okay, one thing I can see from this is that it's not solid metal. It's spongy, meaning that it's got bits of metal mixed with bits of the oxide, and there's those cracks that are going through it. But I wouldn't call it a clean metal. So somehow water and oxygen have gotten inside it and have really done a number on it. Now that could have happened when it was formed, but it definitely has an appearance that looks like it's been penetrated by
Water.
water and other conditions. Okay, ready? So let's see.
Ready.
Let's start the analysis. Make sure the lights are on. Lights are on, so we're a go. Notice that when we have a much higher percentage of iron, that's because we cut into it. So we're able to really get more of that pure metallic iron. So we're getting a much lower balance. That's what I would expect. So iron is showing at like 57%. I still don't see nickel, and usually nickel will show up right when iron shows up because iron and nickel have very similar chemistries. And so the X-rays are going to react very similarly to iron as they would nickel.
Okay.
There's our silicon right there. So 57% Fe, 13% silicon. So let's round that off to say 60 to 15. That's a 4-to-1 ratio, iron to silicon. And there's a little bit of this balance in there. 30%, roughly 30% is going to be oxygen. So some of that iron's been oxidized. Some of that silicon may have been oxidized as well. But I suspect whatever this is was some kind of industrial material, some alloy with a 4-to-1 ratio of iron to silicon. So,
Okay.
Dylan, you looking this up?
No, I'm just
Oh, you
checking
did
a
so.
couple other things.
Okay, that's fine. We might want to look to see. We can go on the internet and see if there's a common industrial alloy that's 4-to-1 iron to silicon. But let's do the final sort here by composition. And again, iron, silicon, a little aluminum, sulfur, chlorine, potassium, calcium, sort of a pig's breakfast of other common elements. And again, we don't no nickel at all. I mean, even in the very low end, where this is strontium, this is 11 parts per million. That's very, very low concentration. So nickel isn't even
In there.
even it's not even above the detection limit of this instrument.
I
So
understand.
all right. How do you feel about that?
It was interesting, you know. You don't know unless you find out, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's from,
still something I'm going to hold on to. My grandmother gave it to me,
of
so
course, absolutely.
and I could even since it has so much iron in it, I can magnetize this and I can make it stick on there.
Oh, you mean you want put it back
Yeah.
together as best you can?
I can, you know, I just get the copper wire and wrap it around here and hit it to a battery and magnetize it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I can make this into a magnet.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then it should stick to that.
And I like how we, I don't know, I'll try to put this up to the main camera. We cut it so that we sort of preserve the monkey face a little bit. It's part of, at this point, this is part of family lore.
Yeah, it's just like my grandmother said. She had it tested, but I don't know where she got tested at. You notice how you look at you see the little clear, it's like a resin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what I was telling about. It looks like like an egg white.
The light stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because underneath the black light, it looked pretty unique.
Oh, I see the resin you're talking about.
Like lacquer, like varnish.
I think you're right. It is some kind of a lacquer.
Yeah, it looks like some type of lacquer.
But it could be. It doesn't look to me like a natural material. Did someone put lacquer on it?
No,
in your family?
It was like, no.
They might have gotten it, painted it with something to make it look shiny and pretty. I
never know what.
And then there's these veins in here that have a little white material in there. It's hard to say what those would be. Those could be quartz, to be honest. It could be that the silicon that's in there is not very stable as a metal, and it reacts with oxygen and could make quartz. So.
Right. Well, interesting.
Okay.
Well, that's very nice.
All right, so there we go. So what is it? In my opinion, is very unlikely that's a meteorite, based on the fact that there's no nickel.
Right, no nickel.
And the actual material, it's some sort of industrial material. I can tell you, in nature, I'm not aware of large chunks of iron and silicon that are metallic that exist that are that big. You can get some iron silicon microscopically in some things, even in meteorites, for example. But nothing that's going to be that big. So I don't think it's natural. It's an industrial product. Your guess is as good as mine as to the history of it. But usually on YouTube, there'll be somebody who's an expert in metallurgy, and they might in the comments be able to say what they think it is. There's all kinds of weird industrial, but I'm a natural scientist, so I'm more familiar with natural materials.
With the people that look, would you be able to read that? The monitor on the X-ray machine. I mean, you have it. It's going to be posted.
Yeah, we'll show all that data for all of YouTube to see. It could be that it's a historical artifact. It could belong to some smelting operation in New Mexico that did something really important.
Back in the 50s, yeah.
I don't know.
Or even before the 50s. Well, that's when she found it in the 50s, but the late 50s. But it could have been before that.
Yeah. All right.
Wonderful.
Well, any final comments, Ronnie, before we wrap it up?
Well, I'm glad that I was able to come in here and get this taken care of, and I've been waiting for a long time to figure out the identity of this.
Well, it's been my pleasure. It's been fun to cut into that rock and look into it, and I like the family stories. So I'm sorry that it wasn't a meteorite, but
that's okay.
Meteorites are not
has a sentimental value though.
Meteorites are hard to find.
Yeah.
So. All right, let's do the recap with Dylan. What do you think?
Initially, when he brought it in, I was like, well, it could be a meteorite. Like it had some promising things, but I was like waiting for the chemistry.
Yeah.
And no nickel. So silica and then oxygen. You said 4 to 1, or not oxygen, iron.
Yeah. When we cut into it to get a nice the cleanest slice we could get. My interpretation is a roughly 4 to 1 iron to silicon ratio. That's definitely not natural.
So, and so Albuquerque, 50s. I mean, the Southwest in the 50s, you had mining operations. And
That's right.
Yeah, that would be the most likely explanation I could think of.
It feels like that's always the case with meteorites. It's not a meteorite, and we're just sort of like, what could it be? What industrial product could it be? Is that the formula for this show? It's just people come in and they're just like, we're like, sorry, no nickel, it's industrial and we don't know what it is. But I don't
It's
There's more depth to us than that, I think.
yeah,
really,
there
but-
is. We're looking for other things. I mean, we did have like in a previous video, we had that guy come in with a beautiful piece of art and such. And so,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, we love when you guys bring in meteorites.
that's right. That's right.
Or what you think are meteorites. Please keep bringing those in. We also enjoy like a variety of
right.
things.
That's right.
and
That's
so-
right. That's right. But I like this one because it was had a little human interest because it was from his grandma, you know, and it's been in his family. And they're like, you know, this is your family meteorite, and I felt kind of bad that we disabused them of that notion. But
yeah.
yeah,
But I mean, it still has, you know, even though we may have gotten rid of that like intrinsic value of like, oh, may have been a valuable rock, it has a story to it, and it's
that's right.
You know, even if something doesn't have an intrinsic monetary value, it still has a sentimental value.
It has a monkey face on it.
Yeah.
Right?
So
that's exactly right. But yeah, so to review, it had the iron, the silicon, 4-to-1 ratio. I don't know, maybe a third of it was the XRF balance, which would have been some kind of oxide, something like that, hydrogen, OH groups, something like that, which is probably just some kind of limonite, some kind of, or iron oxide or limonite kind of material that sort of seeped in through those cracks. But it was pervasively oxidized throughout the whole thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not clear when that would have happened. That looked like a little bit more than superficial weathering. That was much, much deeper. And then the shape of the whole thing, it looked like it, you know, it probably looks like pictures online of a fusion crust. So that, you know, and it was magnetic and it was very dense. There was reason to think that it might be a meteorite.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's that composition is really what it comes down to, and that's really important. But that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Anyways, well, any final notes?
I just keep bringing in those rocks, guys.
Oh wait, the fluorescent stuff.
Oh,
we didn't really talk about that. So
yeah, so that was something we did after we turned off the cameras, but we got a little B-roll footage.
Yeah.
I don't know the specific wavelength of that UV that we used, but I think it was UVA, maybe. So the scorpion hunting wavelength.
Right.
Yeah, those dots showed up, and he said that there was like resin that was a possibility, and I could see that. I also kind of put out their possibility of like, you know, that wavelength is also notorious for finding various biological materials.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you know, like wildlife could, you know, you have birds going along, you know, they could put stuff there too. But
under the in the hand lens, though, to me that looked very resinous. It looked like a resin.
Okay.
Like that's actually a geology word we use to describe how things reflect. It looked resinous, but in this case, not resinous like a mineral. It looked resinous like epoxy, like an actual resin. So that really made me suspect that maybe someone had tried to put epoxy on it to preserve it or something, to seal it up.
Yeah.
That may not be the case, but I'm not really sure. But it didn't look mineralogical. I think you're right. It's either biological or it's somebody put epoxy on it, and that epoxy happens to fluoresce.
Yeah.
Under a black light. All right. Well, there we go.
All
Another meteorwrong. I don't want to call it that. That seems disrespectful to call it a meteorwrong. It's just not a meteorite.
Yeah.
But really nice guy, and that was fun. It was fun to go cut a rock open.
Yeah.
So.
That was a lot of fun going out to the rock shed.
That's right. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Abstract. This is Dylan. We'll see you on the next episode. And until then, happy rock hounding, everyone.
Yeah, I've seen it all. That's why they call me a professional. I know you're proud of what you got, but this rock ain't worth diddly squat. I'm not saying that you'll never be wealthy, but this preoccupation doesn't seem healthy. Don't give up your day job, you better keep it a hobby on the weekend.